Well, happy October the 2nd. October the 2nd, which would be Wednesday, October the 2nd of 2022. Maureen Callahan wrote this book as her civic duty because she did not want Bobby Kennedy Jr. as President of the United States. Somewhat the way somewhat similar in the way Mary Trump wrote The Most Dangerous Man in the World, My Grandfather, and how he created the most dangerous man in the world, something along those lines. So we all know after last night's debate, did J.D. Vance say that Robert Kennedy Jr. endorsed him? Or did I hear that wrong? I watched it last night. At any rate, I read 3 pages of Ted Kennedy. It was an 18-minute video. I already know so much about this story. But what I didn't know is he let Mary Jo Kopechne suffocate in 3 feet of water. I did not know it was 3 feet of water. I did not know that he was worried about his car and it being cleaned. I did not know that. I also knew this. I watched Chappaquiddick with it was a movie about 4 years ago. I watched it and it was very, very true to what happened. So I'm very familiar with this story. However, just because I'm familiar with the story, and I was getting so angry last night when I was reading it, that's not professional. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. The raffle is not October the 1st. I don't know why I thought I could have this book done by September the 30th. No idea. You know, I started this channel originally because I wanted to read books. Because I needed to go to brain camp. I got that line from a movie called The Other Woman with Cameron Diaz. It's so funny. Now, if you're new to this channel and you don't know me, well, the agenda today is I'm finishing off from page 187, and this is part 5, and it's called Ted's Blondes. If you're new to the channel, and I'll get back to why I originally started the channel. This is why I originally started the channel, okay? And you can find that on my page. It's in the shorts, change.org, search Lasha Rajenko. That's why I started it. And then I thought, well, what am I good at? You know, I was in this wheelchair for a year. My mind isn't working properly. I'm still in trauma. I thought reading, that will help me. And I love The Handmaid's Tale. I read Margaret Atwood's book to myself. Reading aloud is totally different. So when I was reading the Testaments by Margaret Atwood, not the Testaments, the Bible, which, by the way, I'll get to that in a minute. I started to read Margaret Atwood's The Testaments, and I watched back like 10 minutes of it, and I sounded like I was illiterate. It was that long since I've read out loud and trained. I used to be a trainer, a teacher. So Then I started The Exorcism of Annalise Michael, which I absolutely should have stuck with, but I didn't finish it. So then if you don't complete something, how are people supposed to come back to this channel and trust the fact that I'm going to follow up with what I do? Because part of healing from trauma in one of the videos I put up is follow through. If you're in trauma, well, we'll talk about that another time. Let me just follow through and stop qualifying everything I say. It's not necessary. We're all adults. We all know that life happens. And when you're in your prime, in your 30s and 40s, it's very different than what can happen to anybody in their mid-40s that carries on, till you're 50. It's just, and I'm well over 50. I'm 53. All right. We are on page 187 of Ask Not. And here we go. Where are my glasses? All right. I don't really need them. However, you be the judges. And people have watched my videos that I've put up. There are other amazing book readers and reviewers that far surpass my pay grade, right? However, sometimes I've listened to both Cheer Denise and Jessie. They both have completely different styles. I love Cheer Denise as a presenter. However, she interjects her own beliefs and her own perspective in the book. And I don't want to do that, but some people love that. That's why I loved her at the beginning, and I still do. But now I'm watching Jessie because she's just, people are fickle. I'll go back to Cheer Denise again. And if you're watching any part of this, I am so grateful. So here we go. Mary Jo Kopechny. And did Ted Kennedy know how to spell her last name? Yes or no? That's one of the questions for the raffle. And the other questions that are on the raffle, or the other questions that are going to be used for the raffle, are on yesterday's video about Ted Kennedy and today. I'll be dropping little breadcrumbs of what the questions will be. So come November 1st, everybody who's watched this has a fair shot at the $25 gift certificate donated by myself. I will not take donations on this channel, even though this is a charity. But see, it's what I do with the paychecks that matter. Well, when I get there. Okay, ready? All right. An hour after the crash, and that had Ted gotten help, Mary Jo could have been saved, or that later Farrar would describe Mary Jo as having been alone in the dark water, rebreathing her own air, the oxygen turning to carbon dioxide, her emotional trauma overwhelming. Mary Jo, even in death, was immaculate. She was found in her dark blue pants and long-sleeved white shirt, her jewelry, a ring, and 2 gold bracelets intact. She was not wearing underwear, only her chain-link belt came apart as Farrar pulled her body from the car. Her eyes and mouth open, her teeth clenched. Farrar would later describe that last hour of Mary Jo's life in unpitying detail. Now, this is where I know this is where some reviewers would give their interjection. Just imagine it, like how gruesome and how depraved and how obtuse Ted Kennedy was in saving his own behind. That's why Maureen Callahan dedicated this book to inconvenient women everywhere. I had a quote-unquote boyfriend. I'm not going to get into it. This is terrible. See, I just tried to deflect. So this is the way Mary Jo's life ended and described by Farrar. He said, "Try putting a plastic bag over your head and breathing," he said. "Then try to imagine that bag being held over your head by a 300-pound wrestler, and think of having to struggle to get out of the situation knowing you might be breathing your last. The anxiety that sets in is just unbelievable." Gwen and Joe Kopechne didn't know that Mary Jo waited in agony for help that never came. And why wouldn't first responders be on the scene? Who would leave a young woman anybody to die that way? Ted Kennedy would. It's in the book. After leaving the scene, the married senator went back to his hotel room in Edgartown, where he made 17 long-distance phone calls to friends, advisors, his brother-in-law, Steve Smith, known as the Kennedy Family Fixer. You need to see the movie Chappaquiddick. And Helga Wagner, whom friends described as the love of Ted's wife. Around 2:30 in the morning, Helga Wagner, the love of Ted Kennedy's wife. Well, why do I think she's going to be important down the line? Helga Wagner. Helga Wagner, whom friends described as the love of Ted's life. Around 2:30 in the morning, Ted complained to the front desk about guests in a nearby room who were having a party. The noise, he said, was disturbing his sleep. Keep in mind, this is after the accident. Did you ever see his speech about Mary Jo on television? Well, on YouTube? I'm not that old. But, age nowadays, you can't tell. If I went and had Botox and I hadn't gone through that whole debauchery that I went through the last 7 years, I would look 40. To be 40 again. Worst years of my life. I wish I could redo them, but we can't have regrets. They should have regrets, but they don't. How do these people sleep at night? How? Oh, this is disturbing to read out loud. I'm not ever. When have I ever been inauthentic on my channel? When? Never. The worst that people could ever say about me is I'm eccentric. That's the worst thing anybody could ever say about me, in my opinion, but you'd have to ask other people. But we're not talking about me. See, I'm deflecting again. I was an only child, right? Ted complained to the front, about disturbing his sleep. Gwen and Joe Kopechny didn't know that the men in suits who quickly descended on their modest house in New Jersey were tried and true Kennedy men, the cleanup crew, there not to protect the Kopechnys from the press, as they claimed, but to make sure that Ted Kennedy emerged from this disaster with his bright future intact. Ted needed to walk away from this with no felony charges, no criminal or civil trial, no prison time, and no reputational damage whatsoever. He needed a clean path to his rightful inheritance, the Oval Office. The girl, as Ted continued to call her, that girl, I never had sexual relations with that woman, Monica Lewinsky, and I'll say it once. Or he said, I'll say it once before he went off on his lie. You imagine being Hillary Clinton and listening to them? Their marriage is none of my business. But what they do to American taxpayers and children is, but that's just my stupid opinion, and I'm just a Canadian. I didn't say any of you said that. I'm drawing from my own experience. The immigration in Canada is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Did I just say it's unbelievable? Yeah, they have to hire a black person, a brown person, an Asian person, and a white person is, Now, is this a reversal? Because I was not a part of the Civil War or prejudice or anything. So why should I suffer as a result of it? Nobody's prejudiced anymore, but I'll tell you what. Never mind. I'm just deflecting again. These rich people are unscrupulous. Is that the right word? There is no word to describe the depravity of all of them. All of them were at least involved in one M. The Kennedy men. Oh, sorry, 4 of them. Jack, Bobby with Marilyn Monroe, JFK took the lives of Carolyn and her sister just after getting a cast removed that day. Ted Kennedy got away with M. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tried to have his wife, Mary Richardson Kennedy, institutionalized. Who do they think they are? This is when I start to lose my temper. The girl, as Ted continued to call her, well, she was collateral damage. Mary Jo thought little of Ted Kennedy, as everyone on the Hill knew. Ted was a legendary drunk and a womanizer who cheapened high office and degraded the slain president's legacy. She deeply admired Jack Kennedy, but it was Bobby whom she had really come to D.C. for. Bobby she loved. Mary Jo had worked for him in the Senate, babysat his children, and went to Hickory Hill, his and Ethel's famed house in Virginia, for pool parties and speech writing. She loved his children, Bobby Jr. especially, and Bobby Jr. loved Mary Jo too. That's 20 minutes. I'll be back later on tonight or early again tomorrow morning to finish this. I'm just going to go through the pictures in the book one more time. The references this woman used. Look at this, the bibliography. Marine, and here is the family tree from 1888 to 1869, 1890 to 1995. You know what? Take a snapshot of this, everybody. So what Jessie Connell did on her channel is she expanded this family tree and she wrote it out herself. I think that lady is probably around my age. Yeah, take a shot of that. Look at the family tree. Okay, we have a lot to get through. We really do. And you know what? Look at the bibliography. Look at this. Look at the bibliography. Okay? And where are we? We're right here. We're right here. We're on page 1. Oh, sorry. If I've been saying 98 and 68, this is page 108. For heaven's sakes, Lasha. Page 108. All right? I'll be back tonight. We'll finish that. So really, if I bust a move, if I were to read an hour every day, you know what? It'll be done in 3 weeks. I can read this in 3 weeks for sure. Okay? So again, we are still talking about Mary Jo Kopechne. I hope that you got a snapshot of the family tree. I will be back a little later, and I just wanted to thank everybody who has recently joined. I put a short up in reference to how we conduct the raffles so that everybody's name is in there, you know. So, good night, all of you. The time has come. I have to go now. I really must say, a full-time job in the day. I love working at Yella's at night, but I want a full-time job in the day. And I'm going to pray. This is Sophiana Banana. That's my Goyle. She's sleeping. Doesn't she look like a little embryo? She's a darling. She's my darling. All right. I will see all of you later. That is a wrap. Take care of yourselves. I will do the same. And on that note, that is a wrap.